Formula One is no stranger to rule changes and regulation shifts, but the latest U-turn by the FIA has stirred up major controversy. As we approach the 2025 F1 season, this unexpected change in regulations could have a significant impact on the title fight, potentially distorting the competition and affecting the team's strategies heading into the season. The FIA's decision to reverse a critical rule change has sent shockwaves through the paddock, leaving fans, teams, and drivers to question how it will alter the dynamic of the championship. So, what exactly is the FIA's latest U-turn, and how could it potentially affect the battle for the 2025 World Championship? Let's break it down. The U-turn. What did the FIA change? The latest controversy revolves around the FIA's decision to backtrack on a technical change that was initially set to take place ahead of the 2025 season. Originally, the FIA had planned to implement a new technical directive aimed at reducing the impact of flexible aerodynamics, specifically the rear wing flexibility. This was a response to growing concerns among teams that some were finding ways to exploit loopholes in the aerodynamics regulations to gain a performance advantage. The goal of this new rule was to level the playing field by ensuring that teams couldn't benefit from excessive rear wing flexing, which could provide additional downforce at high speeds, especially in straight-line performance. Many saw this regulation as an attempt to bring an end to some of the creative engineering solutions that some teams had been using to maximize performance at certain tracks. However, after initial discussions and input from the teams, the FIA made a stunning reversal. They announced that the new directive would be delayed or potentially scrapped altogether. This U-turn has left the paddock divided, with some teams celebrating the decision, while others argue that it could distort the upcoming title fight by unfairly benefiting certain teams. How this U-turn could distort the title fight. The timing of the FIA's U-turn could have significant implications for the 2025 championship battle. Let's take a look at how this decision might alter the competitive landscape for both drivers and teams. 1. Potential for unfair advantages. One of the key issues with the scrapping of this directive is that some teams may now have an unfair advantage heading into the 2025 season. Teams that had already mastered flexible aerodynamics, particularly in their rear wings, are likely to benefit significantly from the reversal. These teams, already at the top of the grid, could find themselves with an even greater performance edge in key sectors, such as straight-line speed, that could prove pivotal during race weekends. For instance, teams like Red Bull, who have been at the forefront of aero innovations, may see a boost to their performance, especially at high-speed circuits like Baku or Monza, where aerodynamics play a major role in overall lap time. By allowing these teams to continue using their previously gray area aerodynamic concepts, the FIA could be inadvertently tilting the balance of power further toward the top teams. Second, impact on midfield teams and smaller constructors. On the flip side, smaller teams or those in the midfield, such as Ferrari, Aston Martin, or McLaren, could see their title hopes harmed by this decision. These teams have been working hard to narrow the performance gap to Red Bull and other top competitors, and they were relying on the introduction of the new rule to help level the playing field. For teams that didn't have the resources or engineering depth to exploit flexible aerodynamics to the same extent as the bigger teams, the scrapping of the rule could leave them facing an even larger deficit in 2025. This could mean that the midfield battle becomes more defined, with the top teams maintaining their lead and the gap between the front and the rest of the grid widening. Additionally, the delayed introduction of this directive could result in greater disparity across the grid, with some teams potentially falling behind in terms of overall development. This could distort the championship race and prevent the midfield teams from having a fair opportunity to compete for higher positions, especially if the top teams continue to gain a performance edge through their use of flexible aero solutions. Third, strategic revisions and uncertainty among teams. The decision has also thrown a wrench into teams' pre-season planning and development. Teams typically plan their car designs and upgrades months or even years in advance, based on the understanding of the rules and regulations. The unexpected reversal of the FIA's directive means that some teams may have already committed resources to developing their cars with the expectation that the rule would be enforced. Furthermore, this uncertainty could have wider implications throughout the season. Teams may now have to adjust their strategies mid-season, either by developing new aero components or tweaking their car designs to match the dynamic regulations. This continual uncertainty in the rules could lead to frustrations for teams, particularly those that were hoping for consistency to help close the performance gap. Fourth, title race distortion, the impact on drivers. From a driver's perspective, the U-turn could also impact the title fight in 2025. The top drivers, such as Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, and Charles Leclerc, are all vying for the championship, and the shift in aero regulations could favor certain teams over others. Verstappen and Red Bull, for instance, might benefit greatly from the scrapping of the new rules, which could give the reigning champion a further advantage in his quest for an additional title. While teams at the top may welcome the change, drivers in the midfield, including George Russell and Lando Norris, could feel the effects of this distortion, as it could prevent them from making any serious challenges for the top spots. In some ways, this U-turn could make the 2025 season less about driver talent and more about the aerodynamics and performance advantages created by these controversial technicalities. What happens next? As the 2025 season approaches, the fallout from the FIA's decision is likely to continue. Teams, drivers, and fans will all be watching closely to see how the decision plays out on track. Will the U-turn have a significant impact on the championship battle, or will it be a non-issue once the season begins? Only time will tell, but there's no denying that this regulatory shift has added a layer of uncertainty to what promises to be an exciting season. One thing is certain. The 2025 F1 title fight will be more unpredictable than ever. Whether this FIA U-turn proves to be a game-changer or merely a brief disturbance remains to be seen, but it's clear that the 2025 season will not be without controversy and drama.